Hello, hello, Heather Jean here. I'm so excited to see you. I'm here with Alison McLean from Ignite Your Wellness, and we have so much to discuss. I'm so excited. Welcome, welcome, Alison.
Thank you.
So the first thing I need to say, I am in Atlantic Canada right now. I hope you all enjoyed the live yesterday with Dis, otherwise known as Ryan, who, if you've been around Confidence Through Cabaret for a long time, you'll remember Ryan talking, sharing confidence tips and so on. So thank you so much for Ryan for kind of, I say covering, but I love having people in the community that bring fresh energy. And the whole point of Confidence Through Cabaret is that, we find routes to grow our confidence, whether that's your personal life, your work life, or your stage life, whatever your stage is. And, that's why I'm so excited to be here talking with Alison today, because, when we get to know each other in the community, when we get to know what each other are offering, when we show up and go live, I'm in a hotel room and doing the thing anyway. Alison's here. Hello. I don't know what happened. I don't worry about technology anymore. I just give up.
I'm still here. For some reason, it's freezing.
Okay. All right. Hey, Alison. How's it going?
Hi. Good. I'm good.
So tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. I help ambitious adults and a lot of wellness practitioners grow their business while enjoying life and caring for themselves. And I found prior to doing this, I was also working, you'll see in the background, I have a yoga wall, so I'm a physical therapist, coach, and yoga teacher as well. So health and wellness has always, and helping others has always been my passion, my dharma, so to speak, to use a yoga word. And to do that, though, I had to get out there and make myself visible. And part of my journey as an entrepreneur, just an adult, is learning to show up and be visible. And when I was in high school, I was that wallflower that didn't say anything. I was so shy and introverted. I barely talked. And to come and be doing Facebook Lives all the time, keynote speaking for events, presentations, my own podcast, all the things, I really had to learn how to work with this. And my first couple years, I noticed that I was really exhausted in my business. And part of the reason why I was so tired, I discovered, is because I had all these energy leaks due to what was going on in my head in the background about all the things I had to do to show up and be in the world, to be successful, essentially.
So I muted my mic there for a second because I wanted to check that we were that it was coming through clearly on Facebook, and it is. So I'm really excited.
Oh, good.
I love that that angle of energy leaks. So my whole kind of 26 years of being in corporate training and coaching, I always dealt with talking about energies in terms of introversion and extroversion and thinking and feeling and all the Carl Jung kind of energies. And then in 2020, I kind of really dove deep into the masculine and feminine energies and how they show up. And, so energy for me is a really core part of how we show up, whether we have confidence, how we feel, how we heal, all of those things. And so when you were talking about energy leaks, I thought that is so important when you're trying to get momentum without exhaustion, right? So,
Yeah.
so how do you define an energy leak then?
It can be really personal, but I look at it. So let's say you take just a neutral situation. So, meaning you have 5 sessions, that could be 5 meetings, it could be 5 one-to-one clients, it could just be 5 hour long working sessions. And one person will come at the end of those 5 sessions and they might feel energized and uplifted and ready for more, and they're like gonna sleep well at night, and they wrap up their day and they're present and at home and relaxed with their family, right? That's one outcome from the 5 sessions. Or another person, they might go through the 5 sessions, and at the end of their day or the end of those 5 sessions, they might be stressed, they might be in angst, they might be like, what's the word? Preservating? Think just over analyzing, overthinking about all the sessions. They might be so tired they can't be present and at home with family. And then they're not sleeping through the night because now they're worrying about the next day and they're waking up and unable to go back to sleep, right? So it's neutral, meaning we all have things that we have to do throughout our day. And how the outcome or the result of what happens at the end of the day, how we feel, how we show up, is really dependent upon what what we're thinking and feeling that drives the action of how we're showing up. And so the energy leak to me is, it shows up in that exhaustion. If you're on the side of feeling really worried, uh, super anxious of not knowing what to do, or confused or overwhelmed or not able to relax or be present with family, those are all draining of your energy, which then compounds and you feel more exhausted and more drained. Versus like when you do have good momentum, you have good belief in yourself, and the day might not be perfect, right? Life might throw you curveballs, clients may quit, deals may fall through, but the difference is you don't you still process it, you acknowledge the fears, you acknowledge the discomfort, you might sit with it, but eventually you're able to work yourself through it because you know you have your own back, you trust yourself, you have that confidence, you have that belief in yourself. And so you come out on the other side instead of like a hamster on that wheel just getting stuck and burning itself out.
So how do we, like, I'm guessing from this then it's very cyclical. So it's kind of what's happening in your life, what's happening in your body, what's happening in, around you and so on, as well as your own kind of personality preferences. So there would be tendencies, for example, in my work around introversion, where people are very drained at the end of the day of being with people all the time.
Hmm.
So that would be draining. For me, that is energizing.
Hmm. Are
So
you an extrovert?
I am highly extroverted. I don't
So
have unexpressed thoughts.
I think there's a misconception about introversion. I think because I'm an introvert, I the difference is, in my past, when I was shy out of fear. I was shy out of being saying the wrong thing, being judged, being criticized, being shunned from my friends. Um, and so all those thoughts, I also had trauma in my youth. So it actually was dangerous in my mind to speak, right? To use my voice, my brain considered to be dangerous. So there was a lot of factors going on as to why I was shy, right? Which can be misinterpreted as being an introvert. I am an introvert. I love being with people. I love going to parties. I love interacting. When I found out that I actually could use my voice safely and communicate and connect with other people, then I realized, oh, there's a difference because I can show up, I can share my passions, I can connect, I can develop relationships in a group or a one-to-one setting, but I still need my alone time. So I still I recharge my batteries by reading a book by myself or going for a walk or just zoning out by myself. So there's a difference, right? And the energy leak or the confidence drains is the first one when you're showing up as an introvert because of all the fears versus just showing up and being you and knowing that you can have yourself, have your own back, and then still recover and recharge later on your own if that's what you need as an introvert. So I think that's where a lot of the, for me, energy, why I was so exhausted in the past.
Yeah, I think a lot of times so introverts think inside of their head typically, unless they've had that previous thought before. So that can be really exhausting in a live time when it's a new situation. So, for example, when I'm filming a podcast and I don't send out questions, then the introvert is like, but I'm thinking in live time, and the pace is very different and it's exhausting. And how they recharge would be very different to me. I would run a 3-day conference. I would be with delegates through breakfast, lunch, and dinner into the evening, and still be phoning people on the way home because I draw energy from others. So that's where my energy is. And so it's really interesting because when we talk about introversion, people will often think the extrovert is more confident, which is not true.
Mm.
Right? The introvert can be very much confident,
Mm-hmm.
and so silence and needing to think things through doesn't mean they don't know what they're talking about or that they really aren't sure and feeling that confidence. In fact, very often the introverts are more confident. That's why they can take a pause and take some break and know that that is for their own good. So
Yeah.
so how do you take time, you read a book, you go for a walk, you do those energizing things to recharge?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do yoga, meditation, just restorative poses, just be. There's a lot of things just depending on a given day or time. And something else I wanted to address that you mentioned with the introversion of thinking in your head. And this happens to me a lot too, because I think right now there's a lot of hype about trauma and the nervous system. And it's something that I've worked with personally for a number of years and with a lot of my clients and patients is recognizing when our nervous system freezes. So sometimes it might appear that someone's going into their head or thinking, but they're actually just either freezing or disassociating. And for some reason, something triggered a nervous system response. And and I've gotten better about noticing that for when it's happening with myself, and also when it's happening with other people, because I think it's something one of those things that can be easily glossed over. And now I joke about it because even on my own podcast, or I've been guests on podcasts where I've literally they've said something, and my brain goes whoop. I can see myself. I'll disassociate, and now I'm like, wait, where'd I go? And so it's the ability. I've been working a lot with a lot of people, and that can also be an energy leak because you can feel very scattered and drained and pulled in all these different directions.
Yeah, I think that's a really important one. It's not something that I had a relationship with before 2020 and before we had to
Ah,
go into quiet time. So, for example, I do yoga, but I do yoga always in a class or in a group, and I'm never quiet. So I have to go to classes where they allow and encourage lots of talking, um, which is annoying for those who want quiet, but that's a different yoga class than the ones that I go to. So like yoga for extroverts. We play rock music and we talk while we're holding the poses. And it's necessary for me because that's how I'm kind of having my thoughts. But when COVID hit and I had that introverted time, I just assumed because I work so much with the introverted energy that that was what that was. And it wasn't. It was very different in terms of my nervous system shutting down and just having so much drainage and leakage of my energy that it can take you to quite a dark place, can't it?
It can, and that's why I think it's really important to work with people. And it's so helpful because it doesn't have to be that way for a long time. Sometimes you just need to process things through, and that can happen really fast, or sometimes it takes a few days. Worst case, it's like I just went through something at the end of the year, and it took a few weeks. I really needed to sit with it and like kind of be in I wouldn't say a lower energy. It was more of an uncomfortable energy. But now I'm out of it and I feel like refreshed and inspired, and I learned a lot from it. So yeah, there's all kinds of situations that can, but being working with someone is really helpful to help you through it.
It is so important. It's a bit like, and even if you've never joined a gym before, you'll appreciate that joining a gym and going and doing exercise versus having a personal trainer, right? We can all do
Sure.
squats, right?
Mhm.
Even if we learn the exact perfect technique, we can all do those. That's fine. Well, I mean, assuming that we're physically capable of doing those. But I think, if we have a personal trainer, we work harder, we go deeper, and that technique is more exact, and so it is so important to work with someone. I'm here in Canada right now. My son is going through some stuff, and to just be able to spend that time. I think he was trying to figure it out for himself, because young people, they're not really taught like what self-care properly is, and very often they're not aware that it's others are going through it. Everybody's talking about mental health, but it becomes white noise at some point for a young person who's going through stuff. And so you just kind of go, yeah, that's mine is a whole different situation. And he's in this toxic place of, well, lots of people have it worse. And
Mm,
I had to have the conversation yesterday of, that doesn't mean that you're not going through stuff.
mhm. Yeah, 100%.
And I think for a lot of us, where we don't recognize where our energy is draining, I think anxiety, where it's a kind of a chronic condition where we find it difficult or seemingly impossible to stay in that motion in that moment, and we're thinking ahead to things and almost catastrophizing and what ifs, and then of course our body and our mind is connected, and we physically go through that and so on. It's very difficult to then say, well, just stay in the moment.
Mhm.
It's so much more than that.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's almost that bit about, where is my energy going? You know,
Mhm.
how
Yeah.
how do you work with clients when they have situations like that? Whether that's situational or whether that's, kind of a chronic condition.
Mhm. Yeah, well, we just break it down. For example, like, 'cause I've had to work through it myself. So, like just yesterday, I was working with a client, and she's an entrepreneur, and she helps moms have their dreams and also show up and be the best mom that they desire. They, don't have to choose. And I love that niche. And she was finding herself, she's not having the revenue and the amount of clients that she wants in her business because she realized that she wasn't showing up on social media the way that the potential that she could. And her and I were in a mastermind together, and I heard her describing her ideal clients and the clients that she works with. And she knows her people so well, just like a lot of successful CEOs, successful employees. You all know your work so well. Yet there was a disconnect from knowing that work, knowing her ability and her capabilities, to then being visible and putting that out there into the world. And what was happening for in one specific example was that she was writing a very long post because she wanted to give a whole bunch of value, a whole bunch of information. And then something would happen, like her son's school would call and say, "You got to come pick up your kid in 20 minutes because of this and this and this." And so then she would abandon the post. And she said she has like hundreds of posts, not all the way through. And so there was a whole lot going on there with her thinking that she had to write this whole long thing for someone to get value. And so then we realized, like, no, really, sometimes less is more, simple is better. And so if we go to that moment where she's just going to write out one concept or one thought or one idea, we actually put herself in that moment like, okay, here's your shot. You got 20 minutes. You're going to post it right now because then you got to go pick up your kid. It's plenty of time to do the post. You know, it's a ton of value. What comes up for you in that moment? And that was the anxiety. That was the freeze, that was the block. So then we had to like together work through that, think, and problem solve. Okay, if you feel like you're going to puke, how are you going to care for yourself? Like, how are you still going to get it out there in the world? And for her, we had to, have some individual tactics. But in a general, for a general solution, it could be a variety of like breathing techniques. It could be a variety of journaling techniques. It could be a variety of noticing the thought, like actually slowing down enough to noticing what is happening in your brain right then, instead of just going from like the next to the next to the next to the next, and then you end up at the end of your day and being like, well, what the heck just happened? So for usually it's a combination or specific tactics, um, when we break down specific situations. And that might seem very tedious, which it kind of is, right? Because you have to slow down enough to really notice these things. But often, how you show up in one area of your life is also how you show up in many areas of your life. So if you can clean it up in one tactical situation, sometimes it's a linchpin to like roll over and have a ripple effect into multiple areas.
That is so, so true. How you show up in one area of your life very often is how you show up in other areas of your life. It is so true. And I think um, when, for example, I'll use my own example, when I'm having a difficult time family wise, as I am right now, I can still go through the motions of doing things on social media or doing, preparing things. I can still connect. I can still do that, but it's not with that same energy. It's not with that same clarity. It's very, it doesn't have that same authenticity. And I think, one area of our life is completely transferable to other areas of our life. So if you're doing the work, then you are likely doing the work in other areas of your life as well. So I was going through the motions and doing all the work stuff, and then I was also going through the motions and doing all the family stuff, and then it was also, but actually I realized I'm kind of at a crisis point now because I'm going through the motions in all of those areas. And
Mhm.
when I boiled it down, it's stemming from one specific area of my life. If I clear that, then I can start to work through the rest. And it's just like a blocked drain, then it'll all just kind of flow.
Sure. Yeah, 100%. And that doesn't mean like you can't show up and be an amazing employee, amazing mom. It doesn't mean that your life has to be perfect for you to like excel in other areas, because it's kind of unrealistic to expect that our lives are always going to be perfect, right? And that's what I say, like part of the niche that I work with is like creating that version of success, like while caring for your health, because sometimes our health, especially we going through the last couple of years with COVID, like people have realized how much their mental health, their physical health affects how they show up in life. And how do we take care of ourselves, create the space to care for ourselves, and still create that version of success that we want and enjoy life when it's not perfect. And so there's a lot of layers that really go on, where it's not necessarily always peeling back the layers of the onion to get to the core, or that bliss in the yoga world, the nanda layer, but sometimes it's working with them together, or flowing through them, or working with them simultaneously.
Okay, so I have two accountability partners and a coach, and all three of them said, um, so what are you doing for you? Like part of my homework would be to do self-care stuff, and I totally avoided that. And the reason was because the root cause for me was in that personal life stuff. And by doing stuff for me, I it would bring that up. So I would
Mm,
ignore it and do all the other stuff, do all the house and the community stuff and the work stuff. And so I was doing all of that. And the area of my life that I was avoiding, just by not even wanting to get quiet, just by not even wanting to um, you know, really kind of focus on that self-care. That's how I figured out that's where it's coming from. I need to
mm,
go into that part of it. And you're right, we don't always have to go really deep. Sometimes we go deep into where did the beliefs come from and shifting the beliefs, but sometimes it's kind of just there, just below the surface.
mhm,
And I think I love that we're having this conversation in January, because it's not only, but a lot of times January can be a difficult time.
mhm,
And I mean, there's leakage just by the expectations that we set up for what the new year was going to be, and then the long month and the darkness and the, weather and all kinds of different things.
mhm,
And if you can kind of find where that source of your blocks are, at least in my experience right now, that's very helpful. Is that the kind of thing that you do, or do you do other things to find that where that source is, or where the big leak is? I'm
mm.
imagining you like a plumber now, Alison.
Well, that's what I say. Like, sometimes people, when they come to work with me, they're like, well, how long, how many sessions, da, da, da. And I'm like, you got to think of it like I'm like your plumber. Like, do you want me, if I were your plumber and you had a leaky toilet, or your pipes were burst or whatever, do you want me to come in and tell you like all the steps that it's going to take and what exactly I need to do? Or do you want me to just tell you, I'm going to fix your toilet, it's this much, and you're going to pay for that end result? And that's essentially like what it is. But it really depends on the person, a lot of the times. Where I try to meet them where they're at, because I really encourage the listening and the following of intuition, because a lot of the times we know what we need, right? We know what we need. It's just that either we're not hearing it, or we're blocking it, or we're misinterpreting it. So, where I start often is just by listening, allowing it all to come out, and I'm that mirror, because where we need to start, it'll show up in the mirror. And that way, I'm truly allowing that person to create their own results in their life, because it's coming from within. It's not me just trying to give them a mantra or a belief or an affirmation. It's there already. We're just going to strengthen it. And so that's often where I start. Like, what is blocking that, because that confidence, it may be deep down there, or like you said, it might be right close near to the surface. We just have to like, what is blocking that? And that's often where we start. And then the tactics of that, again, I often go with like what seems to resonate with a person, because some people really love, like for me, I've got like 3 journals here. I really love to get it out of my head onto pen and paper. It becomes more objective, but some people really don't like to journal. So if that's not going to flow with them in their life, where it becomes part of their lifestyle instead of just another thing to do, then we're not going to do it. So we're going to explore, just like with the introvert. It's like, okay, it's making being an introvert a strength and honoring that and respecting that. Okay, so what? You need to recover and recharge by yourself. How can you honor that for yourself? You do you. So let's build more upon the things that work for you. Become more aware of what works for you and what doesn't and why. And often those are some of the tactics, right?
I love that it's customized to what works for you. I think there are a huge amount of so-called coaching programs, and I'm sure they are wonderful programs. So I'm no disrespect to anybody with the program, 'cause I have programs, but I think a lot of times when we talk about them as a coaching program, it's not true coaching, and by that
Right.
I mean that
It's more
that's
didactic.
yeah. If I'm going through a coaching program, then and I'm going through your steps, and let's say your steps are about journaling, then it's going to become very difficult for me if it's not the right thing. And what I love
Mhm.
about you is that it is true coaching. It is meeting the person where they are. It is finding what's comfortable and where strengths are. I mean, we always say here in Confidence Through Cabaret, start from where you're strong. Like I don't think I have any conversations where I don't end up saying that. You start from where you're strong and what does work for you, your skills, your knowledge, your experience. It's transferable to other parts of your life,
Mhm.
and and then you build from there. And I love that you are talking about that, because that is true coaching, that it's
Yeah.
about enabling someone's potential by meeting them
Mhm.
where they are. And I really fully appreciate that business model with you, Alison.
Yay. Yeah, and another example too, because I've used being an introvert a lot, and maybe there's some extroverts out there, but I'm also overly sensitive. My whole life, I've been saying, "Oh, you're just too sensitive. You're just too sensitive," and so I thought that that was a weakness. But then when I started working with my own coaches and examining, okay, like I have a lot of people that just keep re-upping with me and re-upping with me for years, and they're getting results, and we fix one problem and then we go to another problem, and we fix that problem and go to another problem. And she was like, well, what makes you successful with that? How do you think you're able to help your people and get the results that they really desire? And I thought about it and I was like, oh, it's because I am sensitive, because I can pick up on what they need, or I can hear what they're saying. Um, my sensitivity is really, it was the first time in my life I realized, like, oh wow, my sensitivity is a strength. And that was like a huge aha. It was like a switch where I remember it thinking of it as a weakness. And now I'm like, oh, I gotta hone on this because this is what I like to. I'm just naturally that way. So if I can make it even stronger, how awesome. So it might be something in your life that you might think right now. Maybe it's because someone told you, a caregiver. I mean, my own siblings used to tell me, "My gosh, you're so sensitive, Allison." And they're being siblings, right? They're not doing it or these siblings might do things out of spite, right? But like most of the time when we learn things, it's from our caregivers or teachers or just experiences, and it wasn't personal against you. Yeah, our brains interpret it that way for whatever reason. So you might have been taught that you consider one of your weaknesses or a characteristic to be a weakness, but in reality it really just might be a strength.
Yeah, absolutely. I think um, sometimes it's not meant in that way. It's how you've interpreted it. Sometimes
Hmm.
it's that other person's judgment of that, right? You're
Hmm.
so sensitive. My mom always said, "You're so impatient." And and I can vividly physiologically recognize the tone and all of the judgment that came with it. And so it was meant as a criticism or a judgment. And I think it's interesting that we already have our own self-limiting beliefs. And then when we're limited by other people's self-limiting beliefs, then it becomes, a lot more self-limiting beliefs that we have had inflicted on us. So I think it's interesting because if it is our own kind of interpretation, then we can reinterpret it. If it's some sort of programming or belief, then we have that opportunity too, because there's a leakage there in terms of what we've taken on in our programming without questioning it, because we weren't taught how to
Sure.
question stuff as
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, like, impatient, like, what a great skill for an entrepreneur, because the quicker you can make decisions and go forward and keep moving, like, you're not going to freeze and slow yourself down. So it's a highly desirable skill to have as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I have I have four children. My child that's most like me is extremely stubborn, and he fully gets that from me, and I get that from my father. There's a full generational path. There's no question. But I made a point of not talking about stubbornness as a negativity, because the flip side of that same coin is tenacity, and he
Mm,
will be a very successful whatever he chooses, because
mhm,
he'll have that tenacity when he's chosen. And
mhm.
so if
Yep.
you squash that and make that be a weakness, then that person takes on that programming. And unless they work with someone like you, they don't have that ability to really kind of see it in a different way.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%.
So how does confidence come into helping kind of fix the leaks, the energy leaks?
Yeah, for me, fundamentally, it's knowing that no matter what happens, I'll have my own back. So I'll figure it out. It'll be all right. And so for it will, instead of worrying about it or getting stuck in a negative thought cycle, or just for me, worrying, anxiety, overthinking, overanalyzing, they're all energy leaks, where at the end of the day I'll end up a lot more exhausted than potentially I really needed to be. So if I just believe in myself and be like, no matter what happens, like, I'll figure it out. I've got this. Just slow down. Like, coming from a place of sufficiency instead of lack, certainty instead of not trusting or disbelief, then I stay calmer. I'm more focused. I problem solve with more ease. I stay in more of that, like, not parasympathetic, but like functional sympathetic. My nervous system is able to regulate itself easier. So I'm not going from like these huge roller coaster of emotions. It's a lot more smoother. So that's how it shows up personally for me, and I think the same is true for a lot of the people I work with.
That is a beautiful description of confidence, and of how that shows up or doesn't show up depending on where
Right.
you're at in the cycle. And I love that you acknowledge that when that's going, that's the energy, and that there's always that potential for, things to happen or thoughts to surface that cause more leakage, and that can go the opposite way. So it's kind of like this. And I think, that's where your point, I just want to emphasize, when people say how many sessions and, and so on, it's like, well, let's see what's beneath the surface, and let's see what's going on. I also appreciate that what you're talking about is helping people to find their own way, so that when it's going like this, they're recognizing what's working. And then when it starts to go like this, they're recognizing, oh, there's a little leak going on here,
Hmm.
and I know how to deal with that. rather than I will need to be with Alison every week for the rest of my life.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's about empowerment and confidence. And I don't want someone to be dependent upon me. I want them to choose to want to work with me because they know that, yeah, they can do it by themselves, right? Some people choose to go it alone. But when they work with me, it's easier, it's smoother, and you get results faster. So it's an option.
It is, and I really appreciate the good naturedness that you've followed my weird extroversion because I don't think out loud, so sometimes I say stuff. I've now made you a plumber and a personal trainer during this
I
last.
love it. Well, that was one of my first certifications was personal training over 20 years ago. So
There you go. There you go. I love that. I absolutely adore that. Alison is a member of Confidence Through Cabaret Community, so you can reach out either in this link or you'll find it under members. You'll be able to connect with Alison. How else can we find you, Alison?
yeah, if you just go to the website, which is the same name, igniteyourwellness.com with the UR, no spaces, then all the things are there. You can sign up for a free strategy call, get to the podcast, whatever floats, what you do, whatever you need. There's a lot of information right there.
Absolutely love that. Can I just say one last thing before we wrap up here and say goodbye for now? These strategy calls, everybody's doing strategy calls, and because of that, there are so many people that will go, well, that's just another word for a sales call, and if I jump on a call with Alison or Heather, then they're gonna sell stuff to me. Right. And I'm always like, no, just get on a damn call and let's talk about it. Because I might have no way of helping you.
Yeah,
But I
100%.
probably know somebody who can if it's not me. I meet people all the time. So it's that. And that is very much my business model is collaboration, not selling at all costs. It's like, look, if you need to work with Alison, then I'm going to put you guys in touch, and I love working in that way because more it's more authentic and at the heart of it, it's about helping people. Can we just clarify, if I get on a strategy call with you, I go to Ignite Your Wellness, spelled with the UR, all one word. If I go there and I book a strategy call, what will happen, Alison?
Yeah, essentially.
Am I going to buy timeshare?
No. I don't know how to sell timeshares. No, if you have like a problem that, like, if anything that we said kind of resonated with you and you're kind of like, well, I'm an introvert. I would like to make that a strength or respect that more or honor that more, whatever we said. You show up to the call and essentially I'm that mirror. So you can tell me like, where are you stuck? What are your desires? What are your goals? Maybe you're afraid to even set goals or visions or dreams. And why is that? So then we uncover, okay, what's the root cause? And like we said, sometimes that root cause can trickle over and be affecting other areas of your life, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. And then you develop a plan, and that plan, it may be working with me if you decide that's a good fit and I decide I have the appropriate program for you. And if not, you'll definitely get like clarity on your next steps for sure. I have so many people that message me after a strategy call where we've decided, okay, like the program I have isn't the best fit for them right now, but this is what you should do instead. And I get so many messages like, thank you so much. Or like Heather said, I'll refer you to someone. Like I have a very broad network of meeting amazing people like Heather, and I can hook you up with the right person. So it is my way of both. So I feel serving the community because I can't work with everyone. And it's a way I love to give back and serve the community. And it also I fulfill my purpose of helping people.
I appreciate you so much, Alison. I appreciate you coming on and sharing lots of food for thought and sharing your very aligned connection with confidence. And reach out to Alison either in this thread or in the community or Ignite Your Wellness. You'll find lots of ways to reach Alison. But if for some reason you can't reach Alison, then reach out to me and I'll put you in touch. It's very easy.
Awesome.
It's very
Thank you so much. This is so much
such a
fun.
pleasure. Thank you for being part of the community. Thank you for sharing with us. Hello, Hazel. I'm so happy that you loved this. Thank you for sharing that with us. Yeah. And, if you're watching this in replay, then share with us your key takeaways. I think the more that you start to recognize and put into this, like, these are my key takeaways and these are my thoughts and these are, the more that we can support one another, but also the more you'll get clarity of, that I actually expressed that, and I'm starting to sort of see key steps for myself. So I absolutely adore what you do. Thank you so much, Alison.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You can reach Confidence Through Cabaret on all of the socials. Podcast comes out every Wednesday. Search Confidence Through Cabaret anywhere you get your podcasts. This will also be on YouTube under Confidence in the Community. Coffee in the Community, even on Confidence Through Cabaret YouTube channel. You will find us everywhere on socials as Confidence Through Cabaret. I am Heather Jean also, so you can reach out anytime. The only two socials where we are not Confidence Through Cabaret is Twitter, which is at YBYWYS, and Clubhouse, which is at Heather YBYWYS. And those 6 letters stand for it is your body, it is your world, and it is your stage. Take up space and own it. And unapologetically, you deserve to show up. Thank you for being here. See you again. Bye.